Okay, let's open with a word of prayer and we'll begin. Father God, we have enjoyed very much going through your book of Isaiah, understanding you better, learning more about you. And now as we conclude, we ask, as we have asked every week, that you would open our eyes, that you would illuminate us to truth, that you would allow us to understand you correctly, that we might worship, that we might serve, that we might please you in how we live this life. We ask this in your name. Amen. Okay, if you would turn to Isaiah 65, it's kind of a lengthy passage, but we're going to cut a little bit out of the middle. And I would say the one thing about Isaiah and why people kind of back away from studying Isaiah is some of these passages are pretty challenging because when you read these passages, you really wonder if they are talking or if Isaiah is prophesying in sequence, if you know what I mean. Meaning that, okay, so this is the verse that comes before this verse, but does that mean that that event occurs before this event that he's talking about? And so we're not going to get there this morning. You're going to read some of this and you'll probably wonder, well, when is this supposed to happen? And when is that supposed to happen? And I'm not going to address that as much as I'm going to talk about, and we're going to discuss really what it tells us about God and what his plans are for the future, however he decides and whenever he decides to work these things out through history. So if you would turn to Isaiah 65, beginning with verse 17. And we will read Isaiah 17 through 16, verse 6. Okay, let's start over. Isaiah 65, 17 through 25. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things shall not be remembered, or come into mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem to be a joy, and her people to be a gladness. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and be glad in my people. No more shall be heard in it the sound of weeping and the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not fill out his days. For the young man shall die 100 years old, and the sinner 100 years old shall be accursed. Okay. There you go. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, for they shall be the offspring of the blessed of the Lord, and their descendants with them. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall graze together, the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and dust shall be the serpent's food. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, says the Lord. That's one of those passages that you looked at and you said, well, when is this supposed to happen? And when is that supposed to happen? And is this in the new heavens and the new earth, or is this before the new heavens and the new earth? So those questions are out there. What simple joys and pleasures characterize the new heavens and the new earth? And why is this simple description so appealing to us? So go back now, beginning with verse 17, and just look down through there. And what are some of those simple pleasures that he describes here that are so appealing to us in the future?
I think no more pain or discomfort.
Okay. No more pain, no more discomfort, no more weeping. Why is that appealing to us? We're wimps, we don't want pain.
And the older we get, the more pain we experience.
Well, that's true.
John, I saw something last I was 17 that I missed all the times going through Isaiah the last 40 years. And it answers a question of mine. It says, "And the former shall not be remembered or come to mind." I've always worried about the conflicts we have with people on this earth.
Yeah.
This tells me
Yeah, okay, so before, as I was setting up this morning, one of our scholars came and asked me about this verse. So Joe Gershon is going to explain this verse to all of us. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it references the new heaven and the new earth as though it's going to be so different that you won't even remember what you're experiencing now, or does that really mean that we won't remember any of this?
But is it, again, are we talking about conditions in the millennial kingdom?
Yeah,
Or are we talking about conditions after the great white throne judgment?
right,
After the millennial kingdom?
Right.
Again, there's another,
Right.
religion also talks about a new heaven and a new earth.
right, right. I think the new heaven and the new earth is after the old heaven and the old earth has gone away, which means it is done. The history of this world is done, and a new creation occurs. And it's in that world then that this applies, that these former things shall not be remembered. Sally?
I was going to say, also when it says, or come into mind, we won't even want to think about it.
And that may be it. We may not even want to think about it. We're going to talk about that in a second.
Like I said, there is some controversy as to whether this refers to the millennial kingdom or
Yeah.
the eternal kingdom.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's controversy, no question. What else do you see in here? These simple pleasures. Longevity. Okay. What else?
Some of the things that you work on actually work out.
Oh,
I mean, they don't, you plant a garden and you don't eat and buy everything else and you don't get to eat from it, or
yeah.
you go out there and the bugs have eaten everything out. It's
So
production.
the world is not working against you as you work, right?
Yeah.
The curse. The curse is gone, and so it's not working against you. When you go out and you prune a tree, it just bears more fruit. When you go out and cultivate the garden, it just bears more vegetables. It isn't working against you as the curse now works against you. Carol?
Mirrors the Garden of Eden.
Yeah?
And that's what, as you were reading, that's what's coming to my mind.
Right.
The time in the garden
Before the curse.
before the curse.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't, it was work. But it wasn't work like we know it. It wasn't work by the sweat of our brow. It wasn't cursed in that way. It was work, and whatever you applied your hands to bore fruit.
There's not going to be hundreds, it's going to be plenty for everyone.
Yeah. No shortages. Plenty for everyone. Sharon?
I just thought, it is very confusing because in verse 20 it talks about death.
Yeah. Right.
Where does that come
It is
from?
very confusing. I agree. No, I agree. There was a hand over here I saw, John.
Well, to me, it refers back to somewhat the Garden of Eden, before the fall, before the curse. Similar
Right.
in a lot of ways,
Right.
but it is confusing.
So there is a future time that God is promising here. There is a time in the future when it's so different that you won't be able to remember the past. I think that's what that means. Verse 18, glad and rejoice forever. It is a happy time. It's a happy time. It is a time when lots of smiles, joy and gladness, lots of happy. 19, the opposite. No more weeping or distress. Verse 20, no untimely death for the righteous. Verse 21, you're going to enjoy the fruit of your labors. Verse 22, others won't take what you produce. They won't. I guess that means no taxes. That's what it means, yeah. Verse 23, good will come from their labors, not pain. The frustration of working hard and accomplishing little goes away. Verse 24, before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. So all of your needs are anticipated.
Well, John, isn't that like right now? I mean, God anticipates our needs before we know it.
There's pieces of this now we experience, yes.
It says, in verse 23, it says, they will not labor without success, for very children destined for disaster. They will be a people blessed by the Lord. Does this mean that there's not going to be war and that kind of stuff, and that the babies that are born at this time will be God-fearing?
If this is the new heaven and the new earth, then there is no sin nature, there is no rebellion, there is no curse, there is no, I mean, it is a wipe clean, start over, and righteous people only.
Could it refer to the millennium?
Well, and that's what Larry was saying. Which is this? Which time period is this?
Well, and I was thinking, and the former things will not be remembered or come to mind. And you look up in verse 16 and it says, because the former troubles are forgotten and because they are hidden from my sight. I think it's talking about sin. I don't think any of the wars or sins or violence or anything that happened now is going to be even remembered or
Right.
even brought to mind.
Sin is the big game changer, right? It's the thing that is taken away, and as a result of that, then these things can occur. Because it is a result of sin that the curse is here. It's a result of sin that we work by the sweat of our brow, that there is pain, that all of these things. It is a result of sin. Ellen?
During the millennium, I mean, it starts out that everybody's believers, but
Right.
in 1,000 years, by the end of 1,000 years,
Right.
there is going to be
Right. That's right. In the millennium, towards the end, there are enough that are born. At that point, sin nature has not been removed. Yeah. And then verse 25, animals will be at peace, and all will be right. All will be right.
But snakes will still eat dust.
What's that?
Snakes will still eat dust.
Snakes will
It does, but snakes will eat dust.
eat dust. Like,
Snakes will still slither on the ground.
apparently so. They won't evolve into birds or anything?
Well, I mean, prior to the fall, do they slither on the ground?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it sounds like the millennium because even with death, I mean, people are gonna die during the millennium, but after we have a new earth, we're not.
Well, see this, and so beginning with verse 17, behold, I create new heavens and a new earth. This is what I say, is it sequential? Or is this end times discussion? Wraps it together. Now I want to go back to the new heavens and the new earth though. We're going to just kind of open our minds up here just a little bit. So, how do you picture the new heavens and the new earth? The passage is too long, but if you go to Revelation 21, that is probably the best description of the new heaven and the new earth. Revelation 21, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. Picture that. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. Now, doesn't that sound like the first passage of Isaiah that we just read? I mean, the former things have passed away. We're talking about the former things shall not be remembered. New heaven and new earth. And he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. Also he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. The one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, Their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. Then in verse 9, it goes on to describe this city of Jerusalem. So what is clear in the new heaven and new earth is that God dwells on the earth in this Jerusalem, this new Jerusalem, on a throne. God dwells among men and women, of course. And then it describes in detail this new Jerusalem, through verse 21, and the 12 gates were 12 pearls, each of the gates made of a single pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold like transparent glass. And I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb. By its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. And its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations, but nothing unclean will ever enter it, nor anyone who does what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. So it sounds like a functioning world. I don't know how, the best way I can describe it. It sounds like a functioning world. There are nations, there are kings, they bring things to Jerusalem. Things are produced, apparently, to bring to Jerusalem as part of worship. God is in Jerusalem, reigning over the world, this new heaven and this new earth. So it's not like a cloud floating in the air. There's a city, and there's a world, and it's functioning. But when we talk about the new heaven and the new earth, I don't know about you, but this is where I usually go, and I say, oh, I'm trying to picture this city and streets of gold and jasper and pearls are the gates, and there's 12 gates, and But I think we miss it when we talk that way about the new heaven and the new earth. Because what's the big change that has occurred? The removal of sin. The removal of sin. So we start with this question. When you imagine this new heaven and new earth, what will it look like? Well, you get some idea, and you can go to the Garden of Eden, and you get some idea as to what this world will be like. But this is the question. What will it be like to live in a world without sin? What's going to change?
No guilt.
No guilt?
Everyone will be childlike.
Okay, childlike in their faith and yeah, innocent and righteous.
Only you will be nicer to me.
I'm going to work on it. And Don, in verse 17, the former things shall not be remembered, so I won't remember all the bad things you've done to me either. So.
And it says that we'll be slaves of Christ. That means we're all going to be righteous, and He is going to be with us at all times.
Right.
I mean, He is now, but He's physically.
Yeah, yeah. So the resurrection of the dead has occurred. The immortal body has been granted, our glorified body, been reunited with our spirit. We're now whole in total transformation.
So, looking at that 27,
Mm-hmm.
do you, and based on some of what you said, with the idea of it being a functioning world, will there be those still who practice idolatry and honesty?
I don't know if I don't know if 27 is stating the obvious. Nothing unclean, because there isn't anything unclean.
There isn't a 20.
I don't know. In Revelation 21. Yeah, I don't know, Daryl. Good question.
I think living in harmony, it's just gonna be so wonderful, you're not gonna have any of the
Okay.
things that we all relate to sin on.
Okay.
There's just gonna be a total harmony.
Yeah.
No,
Ellen?
just to make sure, no, this is not during the millennium, this is after the millennium.
That's what I'm talking about now. Yeah, I'm talking about the old world is gone, burned up with fire,
And only believers will be there.
and only believers will be in this world.
Isn't this kind of like asking a blind person what something looks like?
John wasn't blind when he saw it. I mean.
Yeah?
I don't know how to answer this.
Describe it.
I understand. This is a difficult question. You know, several weeks ago, I had that story about the two babies in the womb, and what's it going to be like outside? Oh, it can't possibly exist. I mean, how could you imagine? Jan?
Well, so many times I hear about, God's preparing you now for the work that you will do when you're there. And, I mean, if that's true, it sounds like we will be working, but we need
Yeah.
they'll strive and they'll
Yeah.
wear us out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We won't be striving. The curse is gone. The work will produce. So here's my next question in unanswerable questions for the morning. What will fill the void left by sin? See, that's the piece. Ba-dum, 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 sitting on a cloud strumming a harp. Ba-dum. How long am I going to sit on this cloud strumming a harp?
And it's hard, when I was raised in the church, it seemed like mainline Christianity had this view of heaven, this great egalitarian, place in the sky where everybody's going to sit around and, like you say, strum the harp.
Yeah.
Whereas these verses describe, and other verses describe a heaven where there is activity, that we have ministries, that we are serving God, that we're active. It is a place where God has something for us to do for eternity.
Productive. We will be productive. And not knowing exactly what our work is, but we will work. But there's no morning, no night, no need for the sun. The sun doesn't set. God is the sun. God doesn't set. Yeah. It's going to be so different.
I think the work that we do is going to be suited to us, that God wants for us, and we're going to be totally happy in whatever that work is.
Yeah.
It's not going to be-
Yeah. It'll be suited for us, and it'll be fulfilling for us. Yeah.
Well, plus the fact that you figure it's limitless energy.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be tired, we're not gonna be worn out, we're not,
Yeah.
since the day you're born, you're starting to die,
Yeah. See, what will replace the void left by sin? Rick?
Apparently, we have to be vegetarian.
More carrots?
And
I know.
people like it.
I know.
The lions at the top of the list.
No mention of donuts. Tip?
As I look at this question, I remember John 17:3, I think it is, when Jesus says, "And this is life eternal, that they may know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom thou hast sent." And you think, well, what am I going to be doing for eternity?
Right.
A couple of things. Sin hinders my relationship with God. With
Right.
that gone, I can have that relationship unhindered. So how long is it going to take me to get to know Him? Well,
Yeah.
how long does it take to get to know someone who's infinite?
Right. But so we just sit around and have Bible classes?
Well,
I mean, so it appears as though there's work. It appears as though we're productive. Our flesh, what we are encased in right now, that we wrestle against on a daily basis, is transformed into a glorified body. There is no flesh, as in the negative flesh that's used in the book of Romans. That's sin nature. We're not wrestling against that. And so we can express. But what it appears that we're doing here is we are serving. The whole world are servants that find fulfillment, that find pleasure, that have a big smile on their face because it is enjoyable, without sin. Without that, without the load that we carry through life and wrestle with. God.
The other thing too is we will not be bound by time. And I think that'll make such a huge difference. We
But-
will be looking for sunrise, sunset.
Okay, not bound by time. How?
That's
What does that
what we
mean?
understand.
Because the other question I have is, well, okay, is a baby going to be a baby, and is an old person going to be an old person, and is the unborn going to be unborn? What age are they? Oh, wait, it's an ageless world. What does that mean? And I think it's not fully described, right? I think there's probably no way for it to be fully described that we could even understand it. We have no ability to relate to what is really being said here because we've known nothing else. We read this passage by faith and we say, oh, someday it's going to be so different. All positive, but so different. So different that I struggle with even understanding what could possibly be. So if God if God in his character creates, is he going to create again? Is this it? Is the new heavens and the new earth all he has in mind for eternity?
He said he's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end.
And there is no beginning and end.
Right, yeah.
What are the... I think we'll have a lot to learn. You know?
And it's gonna be really wonderful.
Oh, that much we know. That much we know. We just don't know what.
Detail.
We just don't know exactly what.
And I think all of humanity basically thinks in a way purposelessness of overall what we're doing.
Right,
Because how many times you hear someone say, what am I doing? You know,
Right.
What the heck's going on?
right,
Even in the world we're in.
Right.
So you know that's not going to be happening
yeah,
in the new heaven and new earth.
right. Yeah, purposelessness. So how do you fill your time? On a daily basis, how do you fill your time? I think most of us would say, and this isn't a negative statement, surviving. Well, you got to cook the next meal. You got to keep the house from falling down. You got to keep the car running. You got to keep food on the table. You got to. We spend our time surviving. You take surviving away, what are you going to do? And it's not feed up. Don?
I've never considered that question you asked about, will God keep on creating?
Yeah.
I was thinking for a techie, which I'm not, who really knows, the rest of us think knows everything there is to know about computers and iPhones and all that stuff. But that field keeps evolving.
Oh, yeah.
So they never get to the place where they know it all and they're bored.
Who could have imagined? Who could have imagined 20 years ago what it would have been like today with technology? Who could have imagined? Tara?
And in relation to that, and I don't want to take it out of the context of the parable, but the parable of the talents, where Christ says that to the disciples that they will, in how they manage things now, will manage things
Mm-hmm.
in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
we will be doing things.
We will be doing things. And I think that's what Jan was saying about being prepared for the kind of work that we will be doing. But I don't know about you, but I can't wait.
I was thinking as far as preparing meals, it's not that bad in stomach, but other times it's so easy to be.
There are elements of enjoyment in our work. There are times when we say, that was really satisfying what we just did.
But I do think there are some, are you going to need a car mechanic because the car's
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Deb?
I think we're gonna be spending a lot of time worshiping God, and it's not gonna, oh, we have to worship God, it's gonna be just automatic.
Yeah.
We're just gonna be so
And,
happy to be there all the time,
and without sin holding us, without sin burdening us, then we will be free to express who we really are, this new creation. We will be freed for the first time to express our true heart without sin surrounding us. We're going to move on, but this could just go on and on because there's so many possibilities. Yeah, Ken.
About justice,
Justice?
about all the things that we have anxiety over.
Oh yeah. Anxiety gone. Anxiety gone.
It'll be about joy.
Joy. Right.
Judge only yourself.
Yeah. We'll all be righteous. I mean, we'll all be treating each other correctly.
Or if you take it the opposite way, Jesus came to the world, was born, came through what we had to come through, became a carpenter's son, learned
Yeah.
how to do carpentry. He had to have the fulfillment of what he was doing for carpentry, but look at all what he saw.
Yeah.
What a dichotomy.
Oh yeah. Stepping down from where he was down to this, living amongst sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time, minutes,
Yeah.
oh, the table looks good.
Yeah.
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 Oh, we built the whole universe.
Now I build a table.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to verse 1 of chapter 66. Thus says the Lord, heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. What is the house that you would build for me, and what is the place of my rest? All these things my hand has made, and so all these things came to be, declares the Lord. But this is the one to whom I will look, he who is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. He who slaughters an ox is like one who kills a man. He who sacrifices a lamb like one who breaks a dog's neck. He who presents a grain offering like one who offers pig's blood. He who makes a memorial offering of frankincense like one who blesses an idol. These have chosen their own ways, and their soul delights in their abominations. I also will choose harsh treatment for them and bring their fears upon them, because when I called, no one answered. When I spoke, they did not listen. But they did what was evil in my eyes and chose that in which I did not delight. Okay, so now we've shifted again, right? I think we're talking about today and his judgment today. But what's his one day, what's God's complaint in 16:1-4? You see, this is really interesting. Heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool. What is the house that you would build for me, and what is the place of my rest? For the God who has everything. Oh wait, for the God who made everything, for the God who owns everything, what are you going to do for me? What house? Heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. What's the house you build for me? Look at what we have done for God. Look at this beautiful temple that we have built. That's what was being said. Look at all the offerings that we've given to him. And he says, I own it all. You think you own it. I own it. I made it. What are you going to do for me? And of course, it's a rhetorical question because they stand before God and the answer is, well, that means there isn't anything. And he says, oh, no. End of verse 2. But this is the one to whom I will look, he who is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. Not the one who beats his chest and says, look at all that we've done for God, but the humble and the contrite, the one who trembles at my word. And then he goes on in 3 and 4, and he talks about these people that are offering sacrifices. The sacrifice is not the point. You know, yes, you slaughter the lamb, but your sin, I mean, it's you know, what do they think God is? Who do they think he is? Well, I'll tell you what this says. It says they believed that God was someone that could be bought, that God was for sale, that there was this God that somehow you could appease by giving him what you owned. And what he's saying here is, you don't own it. You didn't make it. I made it. Heaven is my throne, So you come to me and say, you can buy me off with 1 lamb, 2 lambs, 10 lambs, 1,000 lambs, 10,000 lambs. I can't be bought. You see religions today buying God. You see people thinking somehow they can buy God. That they can say, well, God, if you get me out of this situation, then I'll never, sometimes, always, whatever the promise might be, if you get me out of this situation. And that's trying to buy God. Can God be bought? The argument is, you can't buy God if he already owns it. That's what he's saying here. And so to Israel, who was caught up in the sacrifices, who was caught up in, look how righteous we are, look all the things that we do for you, God. His argument is, there is nothing you can do for me, but the one that I'll listen to is not the one beating their chest, not the one that is so self-righteous, but the one who is contrite in heart, the one who is humble, the one who trembles at my word, who has the correct position of worship before God. Sheila.
Is this about an attitude? Because some of these sacrifices we request.
Absolutely. But they had taken it to not an offer of sacrifice from the heart, but rather it was look at all that we are doing for God. And God clearly reveals himself as, I am not a God to be purchased.
And I also see too, it's like, who are they worshiping? It's like they're worshiping themselves. If they're worshiping the creation rather than the creator.
Yeah.
And that's why
It was not true worship that was going on here. They were worshiping themselves. Yeah, Ken.
No, the opposite of humble is boastful, and you're boasting by what we give you.
Yep. They were boasting. So beginning with verse 5 and going down now, and this is the piece that we're going to jump over, 14, what it appears here that he's talking about Christianity, the birth of Christianity. Verse 7, before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came upon her, she delivered a son, probably Jesus Christ there. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall a land be born in one day? Shall a nation be brought forth in one moment? The church explodes. The church explodes as a result of this son that was given, that Jerusalem gave birth to. And so this appears in this passage as you go down through here, really the birth of the church, all the nations, it references the nations, all of that. Now I want to go to verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come in fire, and his chariots like the whirlwind, to render his anger in fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire will the Lord enter into judgment, by his sword with all flesh, and those slain by the Lord shall be many. Those who sanctify and purify themselves to go into the gardens, following one in the midst, eating pig's flesh, and the abomination and mice, shall come to an end together, declares the Lord. So he's referencing a time of judgment where the nation of Israel is offering sacrifices in direct violation of what he requires. Pig's blood, no thank you. That was not part of his requirement. It was an abomination to him. So again, we're back to this. Is this sequential? Is this the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD? Is this an end-time destruction? Was there a fulfillment in 70 and then a fulfillment later? Don't know, but the point being that there is a time of final judgment, of wrath, all of that. Those who sanctify and purify themselves. Verse 18, for I know their works and their thoughts, and the time is coming to gather all nations and tongues. They shall come and shall see my glory, and I will set a sign among them. From them I will send survivors to the nations. So they go out around the world. They shall declare my glory among the nations. Is this the church? Is this the church going out, launched after Pentecost? And they shall bring all your brothers from all the nations as an offering to the Lord, just as the Israelites bring their grain offering. Some of them also I will take for priests and for Levites. Then he goes, for as the new heavens and the new earth that I make shall remain before me, so shall your offspring and your name remain. From new moon to new moon and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me. This particular passage, I mentioned in the questions here, is read in synagogues, and it goes on to 24, and they shall go out and look on the dead bodies of the men who have rebelled against me, for their worm shall not die, their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. They say that they go back and they repeat verse 23 after 24, from new moon to new moon, from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares the Lord. So what do you get out of this last passage here in Isaiah? I think that you can walk away with this absolute truth. There will be a time of judgment that is coming. We know that. It's prophesied. We haven't seen it to this degree up to this point. But then there is a promise to believers that your offspring forever, that you will live forever. And there is comfort. There is comfort in the words that are spoken here to the nation of Israel and to us. If you go back and you look at the whole book of Isaiah, we refer to it as the Gospel of Isaiah because it really is, it is the pattern of God's work. The sin in the garden, and the sin brings judgment, and after judgment comes restoration. So for us, the judgment falls on Christ, and in His death, we find our restoration. And the promise then is forever. The promise then is, at some point then, enjoyment. All is taken away at that time. So the big picture of Isaiah, judgment, restoration, judgment, restoration, judgment, restoration. That flowed through the whole book of Isaiah. And it's our story today. Judgment on Christ, restoration to come. That's Isaiah. So next week, Nick and Alec are going to come in and they're going to talk about their plans for their future. They're the couple that sing with us on Sunday mornings at times. They're going to come in and talk. They are going to go into the missions and missions work. And they're exploring Europe in particular as to what mission field God would want them to go to. So be sure and come back and hear their story and encourage them as they launch their calling in life. Let's close in prayer.